Well, the Rangers completed the sweep of the Colorado Rockies, and it's a reminder. One team lost 100 games and then won the World Series. Another team has lost 100 games in back-to-back seasons and is now making even more history in the wrong ways.
You are Locked On Rockies, your daily Colorado Rockies podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Rock on Rockies fans and Rangers fans, welcome into a Locked On MLB crossover between Locked On Rockies and Locked On Rangers. We're free and streaming on your favorite streaming services and on the Locked On Rockies and Locked On Rangers, the Texas Rangers, mind you, podcast on YouTube. If you want to check out the video and check out two handsome baseball fans talking baseball for you here, free and streaming on your favorite streaming services as well. I am Paul Holden, host of the Locked On Rockies podcast, and I'm joined by
Bryce Patrick, host of the Locked On Texas Rangers podcast. I am not the host of the Locked On New York Rangers. I know that they hit the puck with some sticks. That's about the limits of my knowledge of the Rangers up north.
Well, I don't want to talk about hockey with you because you'll make me feel bad about what happened between our favorite hockey teams.
Miko Rantanen.
Maybe you shouldn't trade that big player that's really good in the playoffs, but I'm also just a total hockey bandwagon guy, so I'm just kind of just talking basic random points. But we won't bring up what happened with, well, I guess your basketball team's in a weird thing, and my basketball team's still got a hope here with the back of them as well. But we're going to talk baseball, and I just was delaying because I don't want to talk about the Rockies getting swept on the road yet again. The Rangers handling the Colorado Rockies here in 3 games, holding them up until late in the final game to only almost 3 runs in the entire series here. And Bryce, I teased this with you behind the scenes, and I wanted to start this off with a couple of stats from folks that cover the Rockies because it was a history-making night for the Colorado Rockies last night. But I want to hit you with a couple of stats first. Highest first inning ERA in Major League Baseball. Bottom 5. Colorado Rockies at 8.36. Coming in second place, the Houston Astros at 6.8. Baltimore at 6.37. The A's at 5.79. And San Francisco at 5.73. Opponents are hitting .333 versus the Rockies in the first inning and have scored 40 runs. Next highest is in Baltimore at 32 runs. That's courtesy of Skylar Timmons of Purple Row. Man, that sounds like a pretty relevant stat for this series, Bryce. If you're with me here.
I sure am. That's a lot of runs at the first inning.
Yeah, and it's, when an offense can't come back, it's kind of like that's how you fall behind and you can't bounce back in any games. Here's from Manny Randall here. The Rockies at 7-36 have the worst 43-game start to a season in modern baseball history since 1900, and it's not going to get easier. Next up for Colorado, D-backs, Phillies, Yankees, Cubs, Mets. And let me I got a couple more for you. I know this might seem a little ridiculous, but I feel like I have to vent to another fan base here to just kind of highlight how ridiculous 2025 has been for the Colorado Rockies. Patrick Saunders writes here, Rockies starters have a 6.89 ERA. The worst starter ERA in franchise history is 6.19 in 1999. I got to find the hilarious names of the team that the Rockies now are tied with. But Bryce, as I find this last one that I want to read with you, just tell me your thoughts when I read to you just how horrible the Colorado Rockies have been in 2025.
It's bad. It's really bad. I've seen my fair share of bad baseball teams. I mean, I've been hosting the Locked On Rangers podcast since 2019, and despite having a World Series in that run, this is my 7th season now as the host of this podcast. I've had one winning season. One. It was a World Series championship, and I've covered some 100-loss seasons. And thank the Lord that that 2020 season was only 60 games, because that would have absolutely been a 100-loss team, because it was brutal there for a stretch.
And I found it here. So now Rockies 35 losses. This is also from Patrick Saunders in 42 decisions, tied with the 1932 Red Sox for most since 1901. A loss tonight. So they did, by the way, this was a tweet ahead of game 3 of the finale against the Rangers. They would make the Rockies. So the Rockies are now the first team in the modern era to lose 36 of first 43 games in Major League Baseball history. Only the 1876 Red Stockings, the 1884 KC Unions, I'm assuming Kansas City, but you never know. It's 1884. Who knows what that might be? And the 1895 Louisville Colonels have lost that. The Colonels have lost that many in their first 43. So the Rockies are now on par with teams from the 1800s. And I want to dive into like actual like real baseball stuff, right? But it's so hard because what do I point to? A couple of stats here too from the game, the finale. 13 strikeouts for the Colorado Rockies as an offense. And then they walked 7 batters, mixed with the fact that they couldn't do anything else. I mean, the Rockies actually were scoring 3 runs, the most in this series at the end here. But I mean, it's crazy to be historically bad. The worst since the Colonels in the 1800s.
There's so much baseball history that when you're like the worst and you got to reach back that far, like there's a lot of teams that have been really bad,
right?
Including last year, the White Sox were historically bad. And to be like, we knew it like 20 games of the season, like, oh, the White Sox are bad, but they might just be regular bad. The Rockies are special bad. Like that's tough. Like that's really tough to be a part of. And I know for you looking like it's Patrick Corbin. What's going on here? He gets 9 strikeouts on you, but then Caleb Bosley. Yes, it's spelled BoushleY. It is pronounced Bosley. I messed that up several times. But the Rangers longman coming in, nearly getting the 3-inning save in a non-normal save situation with that. But he strikes out 4. He looked really good in that one. But Corbin, the Rangers found something. They signed him basically off of the scrap heap. He'd been the worst starting pitcher in baseball for the last half decade. The Rangers had 2 major injuries to their starting rotation. And literally weeks before the season started, they had Cody Bradford, who was a homegrown starter, looked really good last year. He has been dealing with elbow inflammation. He has just now started throwing, and thankfully they avoided Tommy John surgery. And then in a game against the Rockies, unfortunately, John Gray takes a liner off the wrist in spring training, and he's going to be out until at least June, maybe more likely July. And so they had to call up Jack Leiter and Kumar Rocker. And Rocker has been on the IL for a little bit. Leiter had a great start, and then he went on the IL and then it's kind of bounced back lately. But they signed Corbin about a week before the season started. He had basically no spring training. He comes in, gives you four innings against the Cubs in his very first start. And he gives up a couple of runs, three or 4 runs in those 4 innings. And then since then, he's been awesome. Legitimately a very good starting pitcher, which I did not expect with basically no spring training. He's not just been, he's pretty good for what you expected. No, he's just been good. And the rest of this Rangers rotation had been exceptional to start the season. Tyler Mahle, exceptional. Nathan Eovaldi, exceptional. Jacob deGrom, exceptional. And then you get in contributions from guys like Patrick Corbin and guys like Jack Leiter and Kumar Rocker. I mean, it is a really, really good staff, but it's not just that. It's also, I mean, again, this Rockies offense has just been so bad. And I mean, I've watched a lot of bad teams, and you know, typically with bad Texas Rangers teams, there haven't been a whole lot of bad hitting Texas Rangers teams. So maybe it's just because I've grown accustomed to watching teams that slug the crap out of it and give up a million runs. I feel like it's almost more infuriating to have like a couple of good parts of the team and then watch the offense do nothing. That's what I've been dealing with for most of this season so far, is like the pitching staff's been awesome, and this lineup that's supposed to be awesome has not been. And with the Rockies, I know it's similar there because you play at Coors. So, I mean, you have a half decent lineup, you're going to score 5-6 runs a game because that's just the way it goes. But I mean, this series, it's the Rangers pitched and hit decently well, not that great, but they come away with 3 wins.
I mean, the Rockies, Chase Dollander, the Rockies,
he looked awesome.
He looked carrying
awesome,
right? And that's like one of the small silver linings where it's like, man, we've seen the flashes, and this is his first big stint in the majors, and it's like, so like if this was a normal bad team.
also
It was
like,
hey, it's a rookie guy going through the lumps and he's pitching at court. Like
he's also like what, a year and a half removed from being drafted. Like he just
exactly.
breezed through the major. And so like for me, my tip to Rockies fans, because it's going to be rough. And if you're a baseball lifer, you just want to watch baseball every day. And even if your team sucks, you got to find those silver liners, find like small things that like you enjoy watching about baseball. For me, I love watching great center field defense, and Brenton Doyle can go out and get it out there, especially in Coors with such a huge outfield. I mean, it is so much fun to watch. Hunter Goodman, not a guy who I knew a whole lot about heading into the series, looks really good. Ryan McMahon has been pretty darn good. Good signs from Chase Dollander. I mean, this bullpen has been legitimately very good.
Right.
And, kind of kept the Rockies in it for the first couple games, even when they went down early in those games. But you just got to find different things. You remember, okay, this is why I like baseball. I close out every single show with don't forget to enjoy baseball, because sometimes when I'm pissed off at my team, and I'm sure you felt it a lot this year and will feel it a whole lot more, I say don't forget to enjoy baseball. And for me, sometimes it's as much a reminder of myself as it is for everyone who's listening.
Yeah, no, and I mean, you bring up a lot of good points where it's like some stuff where there are some small, but it's so inconsistent, especially this year with some stuff. But it is a lot. It's like young guys. You bring up Brian McMahon. It's kind of like it's a guy. There's a lot of veterans on this team that if you're nostalgic and you remember kind of some of the good and the playoffs and stuff, it's like you still are kind of holding on. But man, I'd say the veterans have really disappointed for this Rockies team, because they, young guys and stuff trying to break their way into the majors is one thing, going through the struggles and in an environment that hasn't been great for development. And I think a lot of people would be shocked to hear that the Rockies haven't been a good offense in years, and they have not been able to replicate and recreate the offense that got them into the playoffs last year, when you had Charlie Blackmon, DJ LeMahieu, Trevor Story, and Nolan Arenado all contributing in that lineup. The Rockies' big problem was the bottom of the lineup fell off. Those guys were able to contribute, and now with the Rockies, they're looking for someone. But you mentioned Hunter Goodman. He's had a sneaky good season. Amongst all of this, he's actually playing real good baseball. Brenton Doyle, haven't seen what we were hoping for on offense, but he's also dealt with the sudden death of a child, going through the tough sledding of the season. Like I don't think Brenton Doyle, unfortunately, is as locked in mentally, and that's how can you blame him? The life is just not going the right way, and the Rockies are missing arguably their best player in shortstop Ezekiel Tovar, who's been missing time with a hip injury. So there is a possibility for the Rockies to turn things around a little bit, and they've been unlucky in some ways, but this is a reflection of, this is an organization that has told us they're on the right path, they're on the right track, they will just wait, look at how we can develop talent. And there's a lot of talent that hasn't developed the way that we would hope and expect for a team that has already gone through back-to-back 100-loss seasons. It's not like this is like the first chunk of the rebuild and it's just going that horrendously. This is now going to be the 7th straight losing season of Rockies baseball, in the 3rd 100-loss season. There's probably almost no way to avoid that at this point with the strength of schedule and everything. So it's like, as much as we can find the silver linings, this has to be a reckoning for the Colorado Rockies. There has to be. I guess I can't put my hopes on a massive overhaul of people, but they have to completely reevaluate how they approach things, because again, they're not just being bad. They are being historically bad and on track to be one of the worst teams of all time. These aren't just buzzwords we're throwing out. This isn't overreaction. I just listed you 3 teams from the 1800s that the Rockies are on par with. No team in the modern era has been as bad as the Rockies. And we just saw a team, as you mentioned, Bryce, last year have the worst season in modern baseball history. Now, so got the vent session, got some advice from Bryce there out of the way. I want to talk about a little bit something with the Rangers, because they remind me a little bit of a team that you all Rangers fans are very familiar with. And I want to see what Bryce thinks about this. We're going to do that coming up next on today's episode of Locked on Rockies. Before we do that, though, got to tell you about the folks at Supply House. Get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trades, Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from over 400 top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. Yes, a real person. And for trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trademaster program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage. Now it's your turn. Join the Trademaster program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5. That's promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. It's a series recap crossover between Locked On Rockies and Locked On Rangers. Thank you so much for making us your first listen of the day. Bryce, I was teasing a question or basically a comparison I have for you. If you recall, last year there was a team that was really good at pitching, but they struck out a ton. They couldn't score, and their offense kind of sunk them, and they missed the playoffs. And you're probably very familiar with this team. It's the Seattle Mariners. And I feel like I'm kind of checked out on the Rangers. I haven't followed a ton of stuff, but I'm seeing some headlines from Locked On Rangers. I'm seeing you talking about some stuff. You're hyping up, is this the best rotation in baseball? And that sounds a lot like a team last year in the Seattle Mariners having an argument for the best. And we hear, I believe, top 3 rotation in baseball statistically right now for the Rangers, at least according to the Rockies broadcast. So I kind of want to start this off with this second segment off with a question. How do the Rangers avoid being last year's Mariners? Are the pieces already on this team? Is this hey, we got to hope a guy gets hot and makes some moves at the deadline? How can you make sure that this is an offense that starts backing up this pitching staff, which they did in this series, and now the team's back above 500?
Yeah, I mean, part of the reason that the Mariners, it felt like they underperformed was they had a lot of veteran guys who just weren't quite up to snuff. I mean, Julio Rodriguez, the last couple of years, Rodriguez, you look at his overall numbers, you look at his MVP finishes, and like, okay, he's getting some votes, but it's really been buoyed pretty much by like one unbelievable earth-shattering month and then 5 months of mediocrity, and just up and down this lineup. They really didn't give that much help. I mean, Cal Raleigh is a great hitting catcher, but he has been, until this year, he's just been a lot of like home run or nothing, not a whole lot of on base, not a whole lot of batting average, which went all the way up and down this lineup. They'd had a lot of veteran guys underperforming, and that's kind of what the Rangers had been to this point in the season. JP Crawford had an incredible year in 2023 and then was awful last year. Jorge Polanco was awful last year. Ty France was terrible. They brought in World Series champion Mitch Garver. He very much underperformed. Luke Raley was pretty good for them, but up and down the lineup, they just had so many guys underperforming, and they just didn't bring in that much help, even though they knew that they needed offensive help. They knew they needed to supplement that core. And, this Rangers team, the reason they underperformed in 2024 was because a lot of guys had career years in 2023 when they won the World Series. They had one of the best offenses in baseball that season. And they had a lot of guys like Jonah Heim, like Josh Young, like Adolis Garcia, like Leody Taveras, all of them having career seasons, and then didn't quite back that up. They relied a lot on a couple of rookies last year, and Evan Carter, who had a back injury that really scuffled him throughout early on in the season. He only played about 40-something games and then was done for the year. It's been a hassle trying to get that under control. That's why he started the year in the minors. It's just a genetic chronic back condition that they finally got some
back
tweaks.
Condition. That sounds pretty familiar. It sounds like a certain someone that has no timetable to return, by the way.
Oh, it's Anthony. No, this is a different.
Certain highest paid player for the Colorado Rockies.
I thought you were talking about Anthony Rendon.
No, that's Chris Bryant, who just had surgery on his back and is back on the IL already, and no timetable to return. Sorry, when you said degenerative back disease, I was like, hey, I feel and
tough.
And mind you, that sounds like a straight barb, but mind you, that sounds terrible. Degenerative back disease sounds
especially
horrendous.
For Evan, who's like, he's so young too. Like for me, it was like, I was worried more about like quality of life because he had missed significant time with a back injury at age, 19 in his first pro season. And to have 2 seasons derailed by back injuries before you turn 22 was scary stuff.
Scary.
But thankfully he has looked a lot more right. They were also banking a lot on Wyatt Langford, who has blossomed really this year, but they expected a lot of him. I mean, to be kind of that savior to this offense. I mean, Corey Seager had a decent year. Marcus Semien had a big down year, and they just didn't add about one more bat would have really helped them last year. And it seemed like they learned from that. They learned from their mistakes. They brought in some more slug. They brought in some guys who could hit fastballs better. They were not a great fastball hitting team. They brought in Jock Peterson to DH, and that was, I thought, a great move. They moved on from Nathaniel Lowe, kind of did a first base swap. Lowe was a couple years into arbitration, so he was going to be making around $11 million. They make the swap and add an arm in Robert Garcia from the Nationals, and then they bring in Jake Berger for not a whole lot of prospect capital, and he's a guy who brings a whole lot of slug. He can also hit fastball as well. They also brought in Kyle Higashioka, to where if Jonah Heim, who was an all-star in 2023, if he had another down year like 2024, you've got some help there at catcher, and you can also kind of spell him a little bit. And then the breakout of Josh Smith from 2024 has been very much real. He has been one of the Rangers' best hitters so far this season, and he has been very, very helpful. But you thought you learned from that. And Jock Peterson comes in, he goes 0 for 41 for the worst stretch of his career. And just all these different guys in career worst slumps, these proven track record big league hitters that were all in career worst slumps at the same time. And the Rangers still were floating around 500. You think, how is this possible? These guys who are all proven big leaguers, Jake Berger, who they optioned to the minors, just brought back on Monday before this series because he still had an option. Yeah. I mean, Leody Taveras, they just completely cut bait with because he was not only not doing it offensively, he was also having some just brutal misplays in the outfield in crucial moments, multiple games that they lost because of defensive gaps from a guy who is a glove first center fielder, which you just can't have happen. And then Corey Seager has been dealing with hamstring issues this season. He was on the IL, then he came back, played a couple of games, had the best game of his season on Saturday with a multi-homer game and 3 hits, 3 extra base hits, and then didn't play on Sunday and is gone back on the IL now. So it's just been such a carousel of guys, but I've been holding the line, holding steady. The Rangers fired their offensive coordinator, Donnie Ecker, who was the architect behind those 2021 San Francisco Giants offensive breakout. They also have Justin Veely, who was the hitting coach there. Donnie Ecker was the one in charge of the offense in 2023, and the Rangers won the World Series. It was just kind of a time for a different voice. They fired him about a little bit over a week ago before that series in Boston. And now they have Aaron Boone's brother, Brett Boone, as another hitting coach in this room, a former player with no coaching experience, just kind of give a different, more player centric, more veteran guy kind of perspective, less numbers and X's and O's type of stuff, and more just on the mental side of things. So I'm seeing some better swing decisions. It felt like the Rangers were all collectively very much in their heads. That's a long-winded way of saying, I think if they were just getting unlucky and it was compounding and they're putting more pressure on themselves. And now with a new hitting coach with a new voice and finally a let off, this is the second series the Rangers have played this season against a team below 500. This is the second series all season long. The only other one was against the Angels, and they swept that series too. So it's been a bit of a brutal combination of things. But I think the way the Rangers keep themselves from being the Mariners last year is just collectively just hit better. And I think they can, and they will, and they are kind of doing that right now.
Well, and beating the bad teams, I mean, you are the difference between making the playoffs and not is when you look at the schedule, and it doesn't matter. People say the schedule doesn't matter, and but if you lose 2 out of 3 to the Rockies in May and you miss the playoffs by a game, you know what I mean? Those, and that's what I talked about this with Javi Reyes before the Padres shut the Rockies out for an entire series. It's, the Padres can't afford to lose to the Rockies. They're the only team in the NL West that for some reason, even when the Rockies have been bad, have struggled with them. So I think
it matters. Every single game matters. Like in 2023, when the Rangers won the World Series, literally the last day of the season, they tied for the division lead. It was coming down to the wire between the Rangers, the Astros, and the Mariners. The Rangers only eliminated the Mariners on game 160, I think it was. So it really came down the stretch, and it's not even a matter of like, losing a series to the Rockies, of like the Rangers took the first 2. It's like, you've also got to take the third one. Like you have to take every single game against the teams that are in a bad way. You've got to make it worse for them. And the Rangers have been a very perplexing team. I mean, they had lost 4 or 5 straight series heading into that weekend series against the Tigers, who y'all just saw last week. They are an incredibly talented team, and they had not lost a home series in Detroit. The Rangers took 2 out of 3 against them. I don't really understand what this team is. I think this is a very good team. It has just been in a weird way to start this year, but there have been some very encouraging signs, and taking all 3 and heading into this 4-game series against the Astros on a 5-game winning streak, that is a great, great place to be. Hopefully they can continue that. But that's kind of my very long-winded way of saying just beat the bad teams and just hit better.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And like you mentioned, every game counts in the West for both the AL and the NL. The AL West will be close, and the NL West is going to be a dogfight at the top. All right, we're going to do rapid fire, closing out thoughts of the series and expectations for the rest of 2025 on the way next. Locked On Rangers, Locked On Rockies crossover here for you on the Locked On MLB podcast network, and we're gonna just wind things down with, what is a what? I'll start here with me. I just want the Rockies to start playing competitive baseball, stealing some games, winning things, and start showing us steps in the right direction instead of just being outmatched. And it just seems like they are just so far outmatched right now against all these teams. And unfortunately, with the strength of schedule, it's not going to get any easier. So if the Rockies are able to start putting together some good, solid stretches instead of going on 8-game losing streaks, which they've already done 3 of this year, that'll be a success. But it's hard to even put the word success into anything with the Rockies this season. There is so much work left to be done. So, Bryce, I want to just flip the question for you. What is a successful 2025 for the Texas Rangers? Is it taking advantage of a division that seems pretty wide open and seeing what happens with this team heats up at the right time, like we're starting to see here, or is it just let's focus on wild card as the expectation and go from there?
I think this team definitely expects themselves to win the AL West. It definitely still sticks in their craw that they didn't win the AL West and they lost on the last day. I mean, Corey Seager said the spiciest thing he's ever said at the parade with Alex Bregman. For Rockies fans who don't know, on the last day of the season, Alex Bregman was popping champagne bottles in the locker room of the Astros, and he's saying everyone was wondering what would happen if the Astros didn't win the AL West. I guess we'll never know. And then Corey Seager at the World Series parade said everyone was wondering what would happen if the Rangers didn't win the World Series. I guess we'll never know. The spiciest thing a very unspicy man has ever said. So they're hoping to win the AL West. For me, I don't particularly care. This team won a World Series when they were a wild card team. They have a pitching staff that lines up, a starting rotation that lines up with any other team. And they've got a bunch of playoff experienced veterans. Corey Seager is a monster in the postseason. It has been a long time since we've seen Jocktober. So for me, it's just make the postseason. I think if this team gets into the postseason, they can go on a run to the World Series because Bruce Bochy has the every other year title magic. So I'm hoping that he can make that. It's odd years now that he's in the AL. It was even years when he was in the NL. Maybe he can do 3 and 5 again. I'll take 2 and 3 and not be too greedy, but 3 and 5 would also be pretty darn nice.
Well, hey, why not shoot for the stars, right? Okay, well, we joked about it.
Speaking of Bruce Bochy, I forgot to mention the history that he made today. Rockies making history, Rangers making history. Bruce Bochy ties Sparky Anderson for the 6th most wins of a manager all time with this win tonight. Hopefully he can pass him tomorrow with the win against the Astros.
Yeah, and it was funny. The Rockies, of course, the big news, you might have seen it on the MLB Squad show in your feed, talking about the Rockies moving on from Bud Black. And the Rockies were making the joke where it was like, Warren Schaefer is out here managing his first ball game, and Bruce Bochy is managing 4,000. It's like, oh, man, so funny. It's just such a good thing. Okay, we're just about out of time, but Bryce, we joked about it. We got to bring it up. I'm a big Jon Gray fan. This is a topic for an off-season pod, for later, where we can talk about Jon Gray being arguably the more successful one of the Rockies' last playoff rotation. But just give me your 30-second. Would you take back the Jon Gray trade or the Jon Gray signing at any point, or would you say even with the injuries, Jon Gray has been a strong contributor to the Texas Rangers?
John Gray is a World Series champion forever. And so for that reason, I will not. There's only one move that led to the 2023 World Series title that I would partially undo, and that's trading for Aroldis Chapman and trading away a young lefty ace in Cole Reagans. But John Gray was instrumental in that team winning it all. He was fantastic. He was consistent during the regular season. He wasn't exceptional, but he was consistent. And for a team that had so much depth hit down in their rotation that year, I mean, it was really, really tough. He got injured at the end of the year, literally his last start of the season. Comes back in the ALCS in the bullpen, and in that World Series had two different outings where he came in and he pitched in relief in game one, that magical game one where Corey Seager tied it with one swing, and then the Rangers won it in extra innings. They don't get there without John Gray's excellence in relief. And then in game three, a masterclass for him coming in for Max Scherzer, took a line drive off the back. He only made it through 3 innings, and I believe John Gray threw 2 1/3 innings where he was just obliterating guys. And, he's going to be coming back into this rotation that seems pretty full. He might end up in a bullpen spot when he does come back, but that slider is so darn nasty and the stuff can tick up a little bit. It's a successful contract. He has done his job. He has been about a mid-rotation starter, and the Rangers don't win a World Series championship without him. Absolutely not. No way would I undo that John Gray contract. He is a Texas Rangers legend forever, the Gray Wolf.
It stinks that he gets to go down as a Texas Ranger legend. I'm not going to lie, but we're out of time here. Bryce, where can people go to make sure they're staying up to date with all things Locked On Rangers?
You can go find Locked On Rangers wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. You can find me on Twitter at Bryce Patrick. Find the show at Locked On Rangers. Paul, where can the fine folks listening to Locked On Rangers find you and all of your work?
Best place to go is the Locked On Rockies YouTube channel. Be part of the show there. If you want to join the show, fire off some. We got a lot of fired up Rockies fans. You want to chat with some fired up Rockies fans, you can come find us over there, because Bryce, I think you're going to have a lot more fun watching baseball than I am this year. But folks, thank you so much for joining us here on this Locked On MLB crossover. And thank you so much for making us your first listen of the day. Go check out our pal Sully for your second listen of the day. And until next time, folks, this is Paul Holden saying so long from the Locked On Podcast Network.